In this video, we'll learn how to model a 6-point frame, first with a single mesh and then with 2 meshes. We'll start with this blue 3D polyline frame that I created earlier in AutoCAD. The vertices of the 3D poly define the fixed points of the mesh. That means we have 6 fixed points. First, let's model this with a single mesh. Before we do that, however, we'll make a copy of our original frame because we're going to come back to it later. Let's select it, go up to copy, and then copy it right over here. Now returning to our first one, we'll now use the model builder to add a basic arbitrary mesh onto this frame. On the in-panel Model Builder drop-down menu, select Draw Corner Mesh. Then select the 4 corners in order, starting with the bottom left corner, going to the bottom right corner, skipping the middle corner and going to the top right corner, and then to the top left corner. And now we have our basic mesh. Make sure that AutoCAD OSnap is on, which it is, and then select the mesh, grab a node near the middle of the mesh, and snap it to the middle point that you skipped earlier. Do the same thing on the right side. Let's see what that looks like. The next thing we'll do is find the correct shape for this mesh. Select the mesh and the blue 3D polyline and run the Relax Cable Edge Meshes tool. This will add cables to all the mesh edges and determine the natural force balance shape for the mesh. Let's delete our old mesh, and now we have a new relaxed mesh in white. Now we're going to do the same thing but with 2 meshes. Sometimes you'll want to model a frame with more than 1 mesh because that gives you more control over the model and allows you to adjust the meshes individually. So to model this frame with 2 meshes, we're going to go back to the original polyline frame that we made a copy of, and now click on the Model Builder tool on Draw Corner Mesh, select the bottom 2 corners, and then the middle points as the top 2 corners, those points that we skipped last time. And now we have a mesh on the bottom half of our frame. Now let's do the same thing to the top half of our frame. Before we do this, however, let's go ahead and change the color, which is right here, to, let's say, green, so that when we make the new mesh, we can tell the difference between the new mesh and the old mesh. Now we'll click the Model Builder again, select the middle points as our bottom points, and then the top points, and now we've meshed the top half of our frame. We'll now relax these meshes using the Relax Joined Edge Meshes tool. When we use this tool, in-panel will interpret any meshes which are joined at their corners as part of a continuous mesh, so there's a smooth ridge to the model, just as if it were a single mesh. Now let's run the tool, select Mesh and the polylines, Relax Joined Edge Meshes. Now we have a new mesh. Let's delete our old one. And then let's color the bottom half of our mesh back to white so that we can tell it apart from the top half. And then let's kind of move this around. Now notice that the curvature of this second mesh we just made is actually exactly the same as the curvature of the mesh we made beforehand. We've made exactly the same mesh, only this one is a single mesh and this one is a double mesh. Going back to our second frame, we could relax this model with the Cable Edge Mesh Relax tool. Let's try that. In that case, in-panel will put a cable on each mesh edge, including the internal edge, which will give us a sharp ridge line where the cable runs. Let's delete the old mesh. Color this one in white again. And here is the new model. And since we have a cable running through the center, it's been significantly raised, as you can see. And sometimes that's what you want. That's the end of our exercise, and we've now learned 2 different ways to mesh and relax a 6-point frame.